Could you maybe clarify the one point about transactions that don't have hashes, but they do have signatures?
So the idea basically here is that, like, in a testing environment, if you want to instantiate a transaction with some arbitrary sender, and the sender could be someone else, then if you do this, then you would not be able to provide a valid transaction hash, and like this is just like one complication to kind of, or one like side complication to this approach. Like it's not a very large one, but like it does exist.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
Okay, so does this also affect the transaction index in block approach too?
Not really, because the transaction index in the block is like fully deterministic, or it's as in like it's something that's already known as part of the state calculation.
Okay. Yeah, so this feels like a missing opcode in EVM, because we have block number opcode, but we don't have transaction index.
So I can theoretically see the rationale for the transaction number opcode, although it does seem a lower priority than some of the other things that we've been trying to do. But that's just my instinct at this point. I'd be theoretically fine with the transaction ID if everyone else wants it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's not high priority.
I'm wondering also, does it play nicely with EIP86?
So the transaction hash opcode doesn't play too nicely, because you might, like, it's theoretically possible to get two transactions with the same hash, and like that's not fatal, but it does mean that you can't really rely on the transaction hash opcode to uniquely identify transactions. In the transaction index approach is totally compatible with the EIP86 and like pretty much any other EIP.
So are we agreeing that of the three approaches, maybe the transaction index within the block, this is the best to consider candidate? Are there any other opinions?
Okay, it doesn't sound like there's any opinions. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, welcome back.
Oh my god, like, having computer issues when the call's going is the scariest thing, but anyways, I'm here now, and I believe that I only missed Yoichi talking about freezing the EAPs. So let me go to the agenda. Whoever's been running this since I've been gone, thank you so much. And the stream is up, and the troll box has been posted for y'all's enjoyment. Dimitri says, what's the rationale for having the transaction number opcodes?
So there was one example that was mentioned, the BTC Relay one. I think the idea there is basically that you could ping the BTC Relay contract and tell it, I want an answer back, and then you would only be able to get the answer back in a future transaction, and you would use the transaction number opcode to distinguish between the present transaction and the future transaction. And the purpose of this would be to prevent tricks where like the contract gets accessed and then it replies and then the reply gets propagated with a revert. Like in my opinion, it is fairly niche. Yeah.
I would say the priority increases just because of the revert and return data change. So it would be it would be timely to add it.
Right. Although the other thing that I would say though is that I'm not sure there's that much. So even with without the TX number opcode, you could also do the same thing by having a block number opcode, and well, we already have a block number opcode, and then basically each individual user would have to wait a single block, which is probably, in my opinion, fine because if you send multiple transactions, you generally can't count on them being included in the same block anyway.
Yeah, it is a bit of an optimization.
Yeah. Like, I'm definitely not opposed to it, but it's also, yeah, just like my instinct at this point is that this isn't important enough to be worth delaying Metropolis at this point.
Yeah, I think most people would say it might not be worth delaying Metropolis over, but I'm looking at the side. Oh, yeah, timestamp does not change within a block. That's true, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah. And just to add on, Jan said the initial idea was to limit the transaction rate, like one transaction per block in a contract.
So like, I don't think that's necessary. I think the only thing that's probably necessary is one transaction per block for each individual thing that would needs to get asked. So
Okay.
or even yeah.
So,
I mean, or the sorry.
oh no, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so you can definitely process an unbounded number of users within like a finite number of blocks because you could do things like require the require the transactions to be that ask the questions to be or that ask BTC Relay for the transaction for the block hashes to come in odd numbered blocks and then provide all the answers in the next even numbered block. So there's a bunch of ways to kind of parallelize it between the different users.
Okay. Would implementation of this, is there anyone who would know how long this would take to implement? Because that would have some bearing on if it would go into Metro. At this point, I would venture to say it wouldn't, but I didn't. I came in late to the convo.
And it is 5 or 10 lines of Python to implement, but then like it is also going to be a fairly substantial amount of effort to test. And like I personally am getting a bit worried that like testing is gonna run longer and longer to the points where block times will be like reaching past half a minute before we're able to get Metropolis out. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Any other opinions on that, or any opinions or strong opinions either way?
Yeah, I totally agree that, I mean, even if a feature is trivial, it is not trivial, the manual work behind all those test cases, and they need to be written. So I think that's the large part.
Okay, so assuming there's no other evidence or changes in the fact that this would require more testing or the testing resources wouldn't be there yet, I would say that this isn't going to go into Metropolis right now. That being said, we'll put down the notes of what we discussed, and if it needs to be up in the next meeting, we can bring it up then as well.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so next agenda item, and Vitalik, you probably need to go, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, well, thanks for coming by anyway. We'll send you the notes after.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, so the next item on the list, did we go 1 and 3? Or did we get through 2 really quickly on the agenda?
Which one was 2?
2's the Metro updates, EIPs, and sub items.
We went straight from 1 to 3.
Oh, okay, no problem. So, with 2, that's probably better because since people had to leave. Okay, so the details on implementations and EIPs. Is there anybody who no one really requested to put any like new comments from last meeting? So does anyone have any questions or any comments on their client's implementation of this? Or Yoichi, if you have found any more small changes that you wanted to bring up or things that you've noticed?
No, not from me.
Okay. Anybody else?
So I was dropped off there. We're talking about the implementation of the EAPs, right?
Exactly. If there's any details or implementations, it's sub bullet A of agenda item 2, but like no one really put anything in there.
So what I would like to mention is that I'm trying to run Hive tests on the clients, and it would be really nice if all clients could gather their individual Metro branches into one main Metropolis branch. So we could start running the Hive test or start passing some Hive tests on the client. That's it.
Okay, great. And yeah, I think that actually, yeah, we touch on that in the next bullet point as well. So let's just go on to that because that one's one where Dimitri did add some information and I haven't had a chance, but I was going to add a bullet point in there because my last night I put a call out there for Metro testers, but I'll have Dimitri go through his progress first.
Hi. So for last week, I added lots of static call tests to CB Ethereum and the latest developed test repository. Also, we are about to merge our block hash changes along with new tests. And I forgot to mention, we now have this new feature in a test edit tool called state diff, an option which provide you with state difference logs on a specific test case for a specific transaction and data. And Yoichi is currently working on a documentation on how to use this test set tool and how to create new tests. I'm about to help him with that question.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it looks like this also goes with what Martin said, which was basically that all clients implementing changes for Metropolis should group theirs into a single PR in order to make some of the testing outside of the testing you're doing. I guess I have a question. Is the testing with Hive, how is that related to the fillers that are created in the Ethereum /test repository? Are they linked or are they separate?
Yes, they are linked.
Okay.
The Hive-based tests are using artifacts which are generated from the fillers.
Okay, great. So good update, Dimitri. I think that's promising, and I posted on Reddit yesterday after talking to a few of you, kind of a call out to the community for Metropolis testers, I guess, and I've gotten some really promising emails between last night and now. So I think that you guys writing that documentation is good timing, and I'll go ahead and send some of those people your way who are interested in diving deeper.
Okay.
Cool.
Great. The next item, or was there anything else with testing?
Once we finish the implementation in CPP Ethereum, the pull request is being merged to CPP Ethereum development. And at that moment, tests that we created also merged to test developer branch. And from that branch, Hive test updated. So we keep the most recent test in test develop branch.
Okay. Sounds good. That's good to know. Let's see. Any subtleties we need to work out? No one put any items for that. Is there anything for sub-item C? Any subtleties in Metropolis we need to work out or people have noticed within the EIPs?
Yes. So in the Trello box, I'm pasting a link. Today, Christian Heitwisner is not in the call because he's on vacation, but he has a message about the return data copy instruction. So in the last meeting, we had a discussion about what happens when return data copy wants more bytes than returned. And there were two opinions, cause an exception or return zeros. Christian says he's fine with either, whichever is fine for him, but he requested in some maybe strong language. Okay, not strong, but it would be great if we reached an agreement in this code.
Okay, yeah, he actually told me a similar thing. So, I think that the last call we had. So yeah, Christian just said, "I just want a decision to be made. I don't really care what it is." On that topic from last time. So correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but I think we went with the fail hard approach where rather than filling with zeros, we just have a throw that is as part of one of the new EIPs going to be like assigned something other than an out of gas, but operates like an out of gas. Am I right on that?
We saw more people agreeing on that, but actually the other party didn't say they agree, and actually even after the last call, the discussion still went on the EAP. I think that's why Christian asked you and left a message about making a decision in this call.
I see. Okay. Let me look in here. Time to make a decision on this. Zero filled, zero filled. Okay, so I think it is Gav and Arcady who disagree. So, that might be still ongoing. I think the majority of people agreed on the hard throw. Arcady, do you want to speak for yourself or maybe you and Gav?
Well, yeah, sure. So the argument doesn't change, but if the majority is fine with throwing an exception, I mean, that's fine with us also.
Okay, sounds good. In that case, we're just going to go with throwing the exception, and I'll put that in the EAP as what we've kind of come to over the last two calls so that a decision is made.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for helping coming to that decision. Yoichi, other than that, was there any others?
No.
Okay, cool. I think that was the major outstanding one from the EAPs. Christian had gone over some of his Metropolis EAPs to kind of figure out some of the final stuff behind them. This was one of the major ones. And then I believe Vitalik is aware of some of the EAPs needs to he needs to tackle in order to be done. And then the Last thing would be who I always forget who wrote the other EAPs. I guess Alex Bergzazi. I think he's the only other person besides Christian Vitalik who's written a Metropolis active EAP. The only other one was the revert opcode 140, and I think if I recall that one's pretty solid. I don't think there's been much debate on changing that in a while. Let me look. Oh, okay. Actually, you have a comment at the bottom, Yoichi, on EIP 140, which is pull request number 206 about memory offset and memory length. So I'm gonna go ahead and reach out to Axic and maybe Nikolai if he has some input on that. So yeah, is there any other questions or subtleties amongst the EIPs, or ones that aren't done that need to be people need to be prodded to kind of finish up final points on? Okay, cool. I'll go through and do a final check sometime after this meeting, and so we can kind of get those frozen. I wasn't here for the first of the call, but was there anything new on the whole frozen thing, or did you just kind of give an update on which ones you thought were done, Yoichi?
What I said was, okay, well, we have pull requests, and I saw this morning Christian proposed on some of his pull requests, let's merge, and that process already seems like enough. And I'm not really convinced we need anything more formal than merging an EAP and maybe taking memos on the table that this one is merged. Maybe that's enough, I think. And maybe the focus should be on driving the existing bureaucracy working than adding more flags or more bureaucracy.
Okay, I agree. I think that getting the entire EAPS repo and some of the processes that are newer completely worked out is going to be more important than adding another formal process on top. But between this upgrade and the next one, it'd probably be good to have some kind of formal process. So yeah, we'll kind of table the freezing thing unless we run into a reason why we really need to have it there.
At that moment, I was hearing from Dimitri that IPs keep, okay, well, since IPs were keeping changing, we couldn't estimate when the test would finish. But, well, one thing is when testing starts, then we find problems and that might cause IPs to change. That's one thing. So the start of testing is not the final point. That's one thing. I'm worried about this freezing thing. The other thing is what was it? Let me look up. No, okay, I don't. Yeah, I raised this from my draft, so yeah, that's my main thing. That changed my mind about this freezing process.
Okay, great. So on that note, I think actually that's a good segue to sub-item D under agenda item 2, which would be review time estimates for testing and release. So I'm not sure if Martin, Dimitri, or Yoichi have discussed this amongst themselves, or if anyone has an opinion. It doesn't have to be like anything definitive, but has there been a change in any of the timelines we gave last time? And just to give a reminder of the timeline we gave last time, it was basically sometime between July and September, we would start the release of the testnet to Ropsten for 2 weeks in order to then move to doing the mainnet release after that if nothing goes wrong. So is there any changes to the July to September timeline for it to be completed?
I believe none of us has a good estimate on the amount of work to be tackled. So I believe
No
the
problem.
first thing to be done is to estimate the amount of testing work, assuming no ifs change. And then, I mean, we will see if it's too soon, and okay, if we have enough time or if we would be late already. And then, I mean, we can start talking about how much more ifs changes we can accept or actually not anymore. And there I'm seeing, okay, actually, at least I am not seeing enough precision.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fair. And I think that between now and the next meeting, there's going to be a few things coming into motion, including getting a little bit more volunteers finishing that documentation that you and Dimitri and I think Martin were working on that he referenced earlier. So, yeah, no problem. There doesn't really need to be any changes to our rough window we said last time. Um, so, yeah. Dimitri or Martin, did you have a comment, or Dimitri, did you have any questions for Pavel?
No, he just mentioned that he has a new unit test, and I wonder the unit test will be run only on CPP client. But if we find a way to convert it into state tests, we could run it on every client due to transaction execution on a state, for example. I have a question about EIP frozen. Do we have a label on GitHub which could show which EIPs are accepted and stable and the most latest version for Metropolis?
We don't have that right now, but what we're going to be doing is after today, on the main, there's going to be two things. So there's going to be on the pull request itself, there'll be a label, like a GitHub style label for whether it is, I guess, ready to implement for Metropolis, or there'll be some kind of very clear label of no more changes to this. And then also on the actual EIP, or the EIP repository GitHub front page where we have a list of accepted EIPs, we can also add a column to there. I'm totally open for suggestions on what would be easiest. I guess the third thing for that is also merging the PRs is more or less a declaration of finality. So that is also something that we'd be doing when a PR is effectively ready or complete.
Yeah, that's how I see it too. Merging would be equivalent to free, quote unquote, freezing the EAP.
Yep, exactly. So did that answer your question, Dimitri, or did you have a suggestion on that?
So issues on GitHub, they will stay. And with that label, I could sort from all of the issues and see which one are the latest EIP proposals and the specifications. Is
Okay.
it?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah.
I will say that the issue and the pull request may close though, but as long as you sort by labels that also include closed EIPs, you'd be fine.
Okay, so on closed issues, it would be possible on closed issues.
Yeah, so it's going to be
Okay.
yeah, it's going to be kind of two things. If the issue and the PR are closed and it's been merged, then that means it's included. In fact, actually being merged is like the ultimate signal that it is ready to go for Metropolis. Merging meaning like in the PR, we just like close the PR or the pull request, and then in the actual repository, there's a markdown file with the specification in there permanently.
Oh, I guess we'll see in the next,
Yeah.
once it will be implemented, we'll see how it works.
Sure. Cool. And then anything else? I think Pavel was going to comment on what he's been saying in the sidebar about potentially converting it to a state test, maybe.
I mean, the unit test for block hash contract.
Oh, Pavel, we can't hear. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think I have some issues with the microphone.
Okay, I'll try it, amplify it a bit. So this is regular test for any Ethereum contract. So it would be hard to convert it directly to some kind of state test, and in this particular case, you sometimes want to fake the state to at least have like some kind of state of last 12 million blocks, and might be hard to do it in the regular way. I'm doing that because there is some interest in changing the code contract from the EAP with something better optimized. And I know the Solidity team is working on different implementation. And this is good test bed for it to actually replace the code in the Python tests and check if it has the same properties. So all of that can be found in a pull request in the IP's repository. So I'm not really prepared to like give any final opinion about that because I started yesterday and there's still work in progress.
Okay, great. And then Nick, you just gave kind of a little bit of more insight into the change, and I'm sure you'll include that in his test or his EIP.
Yes, I'll write a message on the EIP with the proposed change. I think based on my own little tests, it should actually simplify the code as well as making it more general. But as I was saying in the comments, although I committed to rewriting it myself a couple of meetings ago, I'm not sure I'm going to have time in the near future. So if Pavel is already working on it and happy to, then it'd be great if he's prepared to take a look at that.
Yeah, I will definitely
Awesome. Thank you.
check it out.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Dimitri, Pavel, and Nick. Were there any other comments on that, on any of this that we just talked about? Okay. Yeah, if there's no more comments, I think that we're pretty much covered here. There should be a lot of stuff between now and the next meeting in 2 weeks, which will be, I believe, on the 16th, on a Friday. And my computer might be fixed by then, so we might actually have something then. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you guys on the next All Core Dev.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.